And we're rolling. Welcome to the initial episode of the Unnamed Podcast. I'm David Todd. And it's been 6 years, 2018. 6 years since I did this, since I was summarily fired by my podcast partner from the, you guys know the podcast. And I thought, the world doesn't need another podcast, but I'm sufficiently rested and we'll give it a shot. I don't think it's quite Lookout Kelsey's, but, we'll figure it out as we go. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but I'm relying on you to tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as far as I'm concerned, if you can hear me, that's pretty good. If you're watching, well, you're subjected to what you see. But we're going to figure it out kind of together as we go. And if this is the only episode, maybe this will go in the time capsule, a collector's item. But looking for your feedback in terms of frequency, duration. You want these to be 5-10 minutes, that kind of duration, or a little bit longer in the 20 to 30 minute range. I think once you get past 30, I'll probably pass on that. And then guests. Things like that. Everything's on the table. We'll give it a shot, a couple weeks, see how it goes, probably a couple times a week. But your suggestions are encouraged and welcome. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on production value, but if somebody out there wants to be involved in the production side of things, I am all ears, because I'm pretty much going to sit down and one take this. You're going to get what you get. Stream of consciousness with some notes and give it a go. I got my computer here, glass of water, that's it. It's a clean slate, just like the wall behind me, just like the Steelers 2024 season. It's wide open, so keep your expectations low and let's give it a go. So if you want to get in touch with me, best way is probably on my Twitter account, @DavidMTodd. I think I'm going to post this first go round on YouTube, so I imagine you might be seeing this there right now. I'm also kind of new to posting there, so comments in that environment are great as well, and I'll see what I can sort out. So also looking for a good catchy name other than the David Todd Show for what we have going here. So let's get it going. Steelers start week 1 coming up Sunday in Atlanta against the Falcons. And you know what we had yesterday? We had Tomlin Tuesday. Few things I like more than the Mike Tomlin presser. And as Mike said, so many good quotes. Mike said there's a lot of unknown in week 1, the element of the unknown. Again, like this podcast, for the Steelers, a blank slate. So let's get to it. So, first of all, I want to say a few things about Mike and my relationship with Mike. I think there's some people I actually heard yesterday on one of the local stations that I was one of the people maybe who annoyed Mike more than most. And there's probably a little bit of truth to that. But if you follow my account on Twitter and if you've followed my show, I've got a ton of respect for Mike Tomlin. As a guy, as a leader of men, my issue with Mike has been primarily in-game management. And if you're not around the Steelers on a day-to-day basis, and I never professed to be that. I was not a beat reporter. I wasn't at practice every day. So like every other fan or somebody who follows the team, analyst, whatever you want to call yourself, sure, I second-guess play calls, personnel decisions, but there's certain things that are much more black and white, and that's clock management primarily, and a lot of things that I think are easier to focus that you can follow without being at practice every single day. So those are the things that in the press conferences with Mike that we might have a little back and forth that sounded a bit contentious. But I've talked to Mike many times, and as far as I know, and what Mike's told me is we have a decent relationship. We haven't spoken to each other in a couple of years. Maybe we'll have some of that at some point later in this season. But let's get right to it and the Mike Tomlin presser week 1, because, man, is it theater. I hope everybody understands that this is a theatrical performance by Mike Tomlin, right? He's out there, and his goal is to put on a performance for the players and staff, first and most importantly, his coaching staff and his players. You know they all watch that. So there's information that they can glean. And look, I don't think Mike is a message sender through the media. I think he's very direct with his team. And when he sends his message, it goes through the locker room or face-to-face or out at practice. He's not sending messages through the media. But I do think that he delivers a message of confidence and accountability that he wants to relay to his team. So first, to the players and the staff. Two, to his boss. Certainly Art and the Rooney family got to deliver that message. Then to the league, because the national media, they love these sound bites, and Mike knows who he's delivering that to. So this is his opportunity to present himself nationally. This is what they're going to take. I mean, they might get a snippet pre or post game or at halftime, but this is where the national media is going to grab their talking points from the Steelers, from the Mike Tomlin press conference on Tuesdays. And then, of course, the media and fans. But this is not an effort of Mike to distribute information and make sure we have a deep understanding of what's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, that's not the goal. That's not the objective. That's not at all what Mike's doing. But so let's get into it. Let's get into some of my favorite quotes, and we'll delve into kind of how that relates to this upcoming game in week one. And the first one was, I'm a doer, more a doer than a talker. Yeah, Mike is probably more a doer than a talker, but boy, is he a hell of a talker. He is all world when it comes to talking. I mean, the guy has his own language, right? Tomlinisms. Mike Tomlin. And, I think he relishes the stage of being up there each week. I mean, I would pay money to see whether Mike preps for his Tuesday press conference. My bet is he doesn't. It probably surprises a lot of people, but I think, look, Mike he's lived this job for however many years. What is it, 17, 18 years, whatever it's been. He's done this forever, and he has a deep knowledge of football, he has a deep knowledge of his team, and now he's got a pretty good understanding of the media and how these things go on a weekly basis. So I don't think there's a lot of prep, but I do wonder if Mike's got a few lines that he wants to drop in there, and whether he thinks about those beforehand, because it's pretty extemporaneous. Obviously, the Q&A, which is the much more interesting aspect of things, is completely extemporaneous, and that's where some of the beautiful gems come out on a weekly basis. But let's get into this and kind of the Steelers and what's coming up this week against the Falcons. And the first line I loved is when he used the phrase, obviously as a human. And I love when people use that phrase as me as a human being, or obviously as humans, as if there was something different. But in this case, he was talking about George Pickens. And maybe not a bad idea to make sure you understand George as a human, because George, as a point of identification, is a super freak of an athlete. And George is a little bit out there. And there's no question in his first 2 years with the team, it's been a little bit of a rocky road with George. I mean, look, everybody knows there's a bit of a story coming in out of Georgia as a second-round pick that maybe there were some attitude issues with George. The Steeler fans have lived with their diva wide receivers, whether you go back to Antonio Brown, obviously, is the kind of Hall of Fame diva wide receiver, but you had other issues in the wide receiver room, whether it was Juju had some issues kind of off the field, outside of the team environment. Certainly Deontay Johnson there were some issues that fans had with DJ kind of on the field, maybe more than anything with DJ. So George Pickens coming in, some question marks about George, and George is human. He is human. And he is a fantastic talent. But brings me to point number one with the Steelers, and kind of where I would take some issue with Mike Tomlin was his quote, "I'm comfortable with the performance of the wide receiver room. And the two guys immediately he went on to talk about after that, he mentioned them right after the quote. I'm comfortable with the performance. Scotty Miller and Van Jefferson. Good God, man. That cannot bring you comfort, Mike. That can't bring you comfort. Doesn't bring me comfort. Look, let's go back to March 12th. Omar Khan decides to make a deal with the Carolina Panthers. Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson. Got to tell you, I've been a big Deontay Johnson fan. There are things not to like about Deontay Johnson. The effort play last year against Cincinnati, running backwards after he catches the ball, lack of touchdown catches. I get it. But you aren't going to convince me that Deontay Johnson isn't a top 30 receiver in the NFL. I think he is. Look, is he a clear number one? Look, he's not Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. But I think with good quarterback play, Deontay Johnson is an elite receiver. Top 30 guy, maybe 30 to 45 is probably a better spot for me to put him. But he's a quality receiver. And on a contract of whatever it was this coming season at $18 million, Deontay Johnson was a valuable guy. So Omar makes the trade. And it's been pretty much, look, it's been relatively solid opening 12 months for Omar when he took the job. The draft, 2023, the offseason, I think even through the course of the season. The trade, the Chase Claypool trade, Omar has done some really good things in his tenure. And, you get the honeymoon period. You get the honeymoon period coming in. But the trade of Deontay Johnson for me was the first point of say, okay, look, here's a guy who, when, they make the deal, I don't think they got fair value back in Dante Jackson, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. And Omar has 6 months to sort out the wide receiver room. Didn't happen. You can't tell me that you have comfort with a wide receiver room where the first guys you mentioned at your press conference, Mike, are Scotty Miller and Van Jefferson. That's not 2 or 3. That's 3 and 5. Van Jefferson, I'm fine. Van Jefferson, better than Allen Robinson. Maybe not as good a blocker, but I'd be fine with Van Jefferson as the number 3 guy and fine as Scotty Miller as the number 5 guy. I mean, look, Scotty Miller. Okay, a little background on Scotty Miller. I thought when you remember back, Scotty Miller's career high moment was with the Bucs. They win the Super Bowl. Scotty Miller's 27 years old. He was a 6th round pick out of Bowling Green by Tampa, and he played on a Super Bowl winning team. I thought Scotty Miller, when they signed him, I was thinking Scotty was in his 30s. Okay, 27. But we've seen this before a couple times with the Steelers. We've seen the Switzer, who was not Barry Switzer, Oklahoma. We had Ryan Switzer, UNC. Steelers, he was a 4th round pick of the Cowboys, 2018. Steelers, or 2017, maybe 17-18. Steelers signed him to be a slot guy for Ben. Didn't work out. Catching 3-4 yard curl patterns was useless. Steelers have Calvin Austin on the roster. Scotty Miller, all 3. What do these guys all have in common? 5'9", 5'10", weigh somewhere between 170, 180 pounds. Supposed to be burners and good route runners. Scotty Miller, we'll see. The one thing is, if you look at Scotty Miller's career, average per catch, much higher than Switzer. We'll see with Calvin Austin, he hasn't done enough. But Scotty Miller's career numbers, 85 catches, 1,085 yards, 13 yards of reception, 6 TDs. That's what you would expect from Deontay Johnson this season. I expect him to put up exactly a stat line like that. That's what Scotty Miller's done in his career. So the Steelers have a huge hole at wide receiver. And Mike said he went in during training camp and talked to him about, expectations, and that gave him comfort, and Van's a professional and Scotty's a professional. That's great. They don't have a number 2 receiver. It is the number 1 problem the Steelers have going into the season. Who's going to be the number 2 receiver? Roman Wilson, we'll see what he does. And that brings me to point number 2. We've got a couple guys working in partial capacity. Okay, Mike mentioned 4 guys. This is an interesting group of 4 guys, by the way. 4 guys working in partial capacity. The first one he mentioned was, who was it? First one, Jaylen Warren. Don't worry about Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren's going to be fine. He's going to step right in week one. He and Najee will share the load. The one position offensively where I actually feel most comfortable is running back. Najee runs hard. Every Steeler fan, whatever you want to say about Najee, nobody can talk about the fact that Najee doesn't run hard. Najee runs hard, gives 100% every play, never going to lack for effort. I feel like Najee still has the potential to put together a kind of 1,500-yard season, kind of 1,200 on the ground, 400 through the air. Maybe we see that this year. Obviously, a lot depends on the offensive line. We'll get to that. But Jaylen Warren, expect the role to be exactly the same. Jaylen Warren is a dynamic back, undrafted free agent. Steelers hit big on that. Another guy, never lack of effort. Busts his ass on every carry, every play, picking up blocks in the passing game. So Jaylen Warren, don't worry about the guys working partial capacity. It is the other three guys, though, that I think make this very interesting. Looking at what Mike was talking about, guys working in partial capacity, who today on Wednesday probably are full go. And I think it will be very telling about how much playing time they get this week. One, Troy Fautanu, Steelers' first-round pick. Fautanu gets injured in the first exhibition game, hurts his knee, doesn't realize he's hurt his knee to the extent it's had, ends up coming out, and really hardly practices the rest of training camp. Here we are, 5 days from the start of the regular season, and it's not clear what the Steelers are going to do with their three tackles. I find this remarkable, and not in a good way. If Fautanu's healthy, well, let me first give you my prediction. I don't think Troy Fautanu is going to play this week. That's my bet. This is going to be the Steelers, relatively conservative. You're not going to change your tackles barring injury once you start the game. And I would expect it to be Broderick Jones, who was not very good in the preseason. We don't understand how severe the elbow injury is, but he got run over a bunch of times in the second and third weeks. So Broderick Jones at right tackle and Dan Moore, everybody's favorite punching bag, at left tackle. Doesn't give me any comfort. And I know Mike isn't looking for comfort. I'm looking for comfort. You know who else is looking for comfort? Russell Wilson's looking for comfort. Broderick Jones and Dan Moore at the tackles week one, with what we saw from Dan Moore in the preseason, what we saw from Broderick Jones in the preseason, what we've seen from Dan Moore over the course of the past two seasons. I don't know how that makes you feel good. Now, what I will tell you is if Fautanu does start in this game at right tackle, wow. That tells me, one, that they've got a high degree of confidence that the kid is incredibly capable. It would be out of character with the limited practice time that he's had for him to start in week one. So it would be a huge vote of confidence in him, and it would make for a very interesting decision for Mike, Arthur Smith, the offense, what they do at left tackle. Are you going to move Broderick Jones over there when he really didn't take a lot of snaps in game or even a ton of reps during training camp? He's going to be your left tackle at some point. At some point, he's going to be the starting left tackle. Do you want to get this in place in week one? And I don't know why this wasn't, personally, we get back to this issue of how athletic Fautanu is and how well he kind of incorporated everything originally. I don't know why coming right into week one at St. Vincent that they didn't have Fautanu starting on the right side and Broderick Jones on the left side. But they didn't. And that leaves them in a position coming into this week where it's going to be interesting to see. My bet is you see Jones on the right, Moore on the left, and Fautanu doesn't play. He'll dress, but he doesn't play. The other guy, the other top pick, Roman Wilson. Guy hurts his ankle very early in camp. We don't see anything from him. He should be ready to go now, but what kind of role is he going to have in this offense? Again, week one, new offense. He's a rookie. You go back to some other rookies. Martavis Bryant was probably a unique guy in terms of him learning the offense. Didn't come in until halfway through the season. But Roman Wilson, I wouldn't expect to see him get a helmet this week. With the Steelers, what they want to do on special teams, how they're figuring things out, it's going to be Calvin Austin in the slot. It's going to be, as we talked about, it's going to be Van Jefferson. It's going to be George. So is Roman Wilson going to come in and play special teams in week 1? Probably not. Scotty Miller's going to be your 4th receiver. I think there's a strong potential Roman Wilson doesn't get a helmet in week 1. If he does, and he ends up getting 20 snaps, I'm wrong. Great. Again, that would be a huge positive for the Steelers. 3, kind of my surprise guy from the beginning of camp. It's a guy you guys know about, Corey Trice, the 6th round pick 6th or 7th round pick out of Purdue last year, got hurt, missed the entire season, came in, started the Lions game, played a lot of that game. The Steelers sat their starting quarters. Corey Trice, mark it down. 30 snaps this week against the Falcons. That's my bet. I'm going to take that back. 30 snaps a game by week 8 if he's not starting opposite Joey Porter Jr. Bookend, big 6'2" corners, Steelers outside. That would be a huge benefit. It's not necessarily a knock on Dante Jackson. I got to say, I don't know enough about Dante Jackson to have a view on how good a corner he's going to be. Hopefully he's capable and they can work Trice in, or Trice wins the job rather than Jackson losing the job. But again, going back to this trade that I hate, that I think is the biggest blemish on Omar's record so far, Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson. I hate it. Don't like where the Steelers are at wide receiver. I don't love where they are at corner. We'll see what happens with Corey Trice, but I expect him to be the guy sooner rather than later. All right. A little more Mike Tomlin dealing with some short-term misery. It might be me getting margined out of my NVIDIA position this morning, or it might be the Steelers here early in the season. Look, we know what the schedule brings, right? They've got the back half of the schedule is ridiculous. Eagles, Chiefs, I think Chiefs on Christmas. We know that they have the 6 division games in the last 8 games of the season. The Steelers if you're going to be a playoff team, you've got to win 10 games in today's NFL. Those last 8 games, feel like winning 4 would be solid, right? So that means you got to win 6 before that. 6 of the first 9. That means this early schedule with the Falcons, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Steelers need to win these games. If the Steelers are dealing with short-term misery in week 1, we're going to be dealing with some long-term misery as this season goes on. So it's kind of some early thoughts here on what's going on with the Steelers. Front 7, expected to be very solid. Of course, the big news coming out yesterday about Cam Heyward's contract. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw I wrote about it on Monday night. And the answer was, for me, look, Cam is an all-time Steeler, but he's a 34-year-old all-time Steeler. Being an all-time Steeler doesn't get you a contract for being 36, right? 35, 36, these later years. I think Cam might already be the oldest defensive lineman in the NFL. But to Cam's credit and to Omar's credit, they met in the middle, and I think they got something done that actually works for the Steelers. At the end of the day, it needs to work for the Steelers, right? This is not you can't pay for past performance. So Cam is supposed to get $16 million this year. $15 million of that goes to a signing bonus. That means they can amortize that over 3 years, this new 3-year deal, and there's no new money. $29 million, that's great. That looks great on paper. And you know what? As I said, the deal with Cam was you can't pay him $16 million a year going forward, sight unseen, coming off a season where he had 2 sacks, he had 2 surgeries, and he missed 6 games. Can't do it. That would be as great a guy as Cam is, captain of the team, again, all-time Steeler, a leader in the locker room. You can't pay him coming off that kind of season. So they did exactly what they should have done. They gave him $1 bazillion, I think $29 million, 2 years, non-guaranteed. I haven't seen the breakdown yet, but let's just break it down. Kind of, $29 million, 14 and a half, whatever it is, over each of those 2 seasons. The Steelers can walk away. Cam can walk away. Cam wants to play 3 more years. But for the Steelers to pick up whatever this second-year number is, somewhere in the neighborhood, guess between $12 and $15 million next season. Cam has to be a force on that defensive line. Larry O, Keanu, and Cam, he's got to be a force on that defensive line. It is a feel-good story right now that the deal got done. Happy for Cam. Good on Omar. It's a nice story going into the season. And now, good for the Steelers. It's put up, or thank you very much. We'll give you, you'll be in the Ring of Honor. You'll be in the Steeler Hall of Fame soon enough. Maybe you'll be in the conversation for the NFL Hall of Fame. But it's a nice story. We'll see what happens with Pat if he gets extended here the rest of the week. That's it. So let me know your thoughts. I know this was kind of dry, test run, figure things out, staring at the camera for, well, I'm going to guess we went, 18 minutes? No idea, no clock. Guess we went somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. I'll post this. Again, production value, 0. Happy to get some help with that. Music, stuff back here. Send me stuff, post it, talk about things. And it's all about dialogue, right? Not this one-way traffic. So happy to have a Q&A. Happy to do some things live on X. Happy to get some guests involved here. So love to have your thoughts. Thanks for taking the time to listen. David Todd. See you soon.